We're live.
Yeah. It's happening, y'all. It's live. I wish we paid more money and could get this duck out of here, but here we are.
You just want the duck face to be gone?
I want to say Cinematary.
That would be cool.
A little Cinematary logo there.
How much money does that cost?
It's like $25 a month.
That's a ridiculous amount of money. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's something like that. StreamYard will give you free ads if you just let us use it.
Yeah.
We'll cut our partnership with PBR and we'll stop with you.
So it's like free to use. Mm-hmm. No, are we paying something to use it?
It's free.
It's free to use, but it's $25 a goddamn month if you want to not see the duck face on it.
Yeah, that's
I feel like that's pretty
the next
steep
tier.
There's a pretty steep ratio in like how much quality you're getting for that.
That's what it says too. It's like $25 to not see that duck. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. All right, we'll start it out. It's gonna be you, and that's just it for the order.
That's the order, yeah.
I'm gonna eat these M&Ms at some point. Here we go.
All right, I support your Halloween candy eating.
No, I'm just letting the viewers know it's gonna.
Oh, okay.
Or at some point, they're gonna see me. That's a great movie, Andrew. As it's some good video content.
Yeah, that's what people want to see.
Here we go.
The mukbang.
In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 429 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Andrew Swafford.
In today's episode, we're going to be kicking off our Ernst Lubitsch series in part 2. But first, we're going to get to part 1 and talk a little bit about some movies that we saw this week. And then talk about how we don't want to be a man. Yeah. Which has really ruined my Google search history. Mm-hmm. And has not really ruined, but just has added a lot of questions to my FBI agent or CIA agent who's watching me.
Yeah.
They're like, Zach, what happened? What's going on in your life?
Well, at least, as I said off mic, at least you are not also Googling how to blow up a pipeline for that TIFF review.
Yeah, All right, well let's jump into some movies that we saw this week. I got two new ones because I was like, you know what, there's movies coming out, so I should see new movies for once.
'Tis the season.
Yeah. Well, I also always wait too long to catch up on stuff, so I was like, man, let's do it now.
Me too, man. I will. If I wait too long, I just won't watch it. It'll be gone forever.
Yeah, that's usually the case. The first one I watched, just be honest, I torrented this because I'm not going to get the Roku channel like an idiot. That is Weird, the Al Yankovic Story.
Didn't this movie win the top prize at TIFF?
Did it?
It won the People's Choice.
2022 TIFF People's Choice Award.
I think it did.
Maybe? I thought it was something else. Yeah, it's the Fablemans.
Oh, it was the Fablemans. Okay. Yeah. Never mind.
Thank God.
It would be funny if that went straight to the Roku channel after getting the tip.
Spielberg's got a good deal with the Roku channel. He's like, I want 6 people to watch it. So Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. It did play at TIFF. It premiered at TIFF. It stars Daniel Radcliffe as Weird Al.
We didn't get in. We had tickets and they turned us away because there were too many people in the theater.
Yeah, it was crazy. But even there was too many people in the press screening. We got turned away.
Yeah.
From. But yeah, so this one, it's very much in the ilk of, that's probably what I'm going to talk about. It's very much in the ilk of the of like Walk Hard or Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping, in terms of kind of parody movies of musical figures. This one's a little bit different. It kind of veers in a different direction, but pretty much you got this is the following the life and the rise to stardom of Weird Al from child accordion prodigy to as uh, as the movie illustrates, like worldwide superstar who eventually is dating Madonna, played by Evan Rachel Wood. Honestly, out of all like the random cameos that actors are playing different like known figures, my
Mhm.
favorite was they have this like pool party where they have all these like random 70s 80s like known like niche stars, like not actual like superstars like movie stars or anything, like very niche, like Divine is there, Pee Wee Herman is there, like that kind of like
Yeah. I can
level.
imagine a category including both of those people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love it because they have all these different like comedians and actors playing these people. And my favorite was Conan O'Brien is playing Andy Warhol, and it's a terrible Andy Warhol impression, but I just enjoyed Conan in it. So, aside, um,
I like the idea of a parody of musical biopics about a parody artist. Does that come through in a good
That's
way at
that's
all?
that's 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 very much so. Like I mentioned, Walk Hard and Pop Star. So it's the same but different. So like you think of Walk Hard and Pop Star, they're very much spoofing more genres of movies. So like
Yeah.
Walk Hard is making fun of like Walk the Line and other very like serious biopic
Mhm.
movies of musicians. While Popstar is somewhat making fun of that, but also making fun of the at that time like the recent string of kind of concert movies, like very like these behind the scene concert movies that like Katy Perry made, Justin
Mm.
Bieber made, Taylor Swift, like these like very like these kind of behind the scenes looks into them going on like a tour. Like that's kind of spoofing.
Right.
And Weird, the Al Yankovic story is making more. It's more like focused on Al Yankovic, which I think is kind of that's where your mileage will vary. Like
Hmm.
I think if you're a fan of Al Yankovic, you're in.
Hmm.
I wouldn't categorize myself as like a giant fan. He's
No.
enjoyable. You
I've
know?
enjoyed a song here and there by Al
Yeah.
Yankovic. Like, how can you not, right?
No, they're super fun, and I'm like, I get
Mhm.
it. They're funny. But I'm not like actively keeping up with him or listening to him.
Right.
And this feels very much like a movie geared to that because it's not spoofing like musical biopics or like types of movies that are being made. It's very much spoofing and working with Al Yankovic. Um, so it's pretty much kind of taking his life, and a lot of the bits out of it are coming from heightening portions of his life. Like I was like reading this thing about like what's true and what's not true. Like he did, start playing the accordion at a young age, but like in the movie, there's the scene where like Thomas Lemon shows up and like sells him an accordion, and then his dad finds out and like beats the shit out of Thomas Lennon. And like that's like how he knows that he has to like play accordion in private. Um, and then like when he's in high school, he gets invited to like a high school party. This was honestly my favorite part of the movie. He gets invited to this high school party, and you think it's going to be like a typical high school party with like drugs and sex and booze, and he like shows up and it's a polka party, and everybody's dancing to polka music, and then they're like, "Hey Al, you think you can play this accordion here?" And he like blows everybody out, and they're like, "Holy shit, Al!" Um, which I thought was just that was probably my favorite part. But then it like digs into like, it spins stages of the movie leading up to him devising different songs. So like My Bologna or Eat It or Like a Surgeon or things like that. Like it's working up. So that's why it's very
Mhm.
built on, if you're a fan of Al Yankovic, like it's building up to him coming up with a song. And like the whole bit with Eat It is that he comes up with Eat It before Michael Jackson came out with Beat It. And he's mad at Michael Jackson because Michael Jackson was making a parody of Weird Al's original song.
So what percentage of the movie would you say we're supposed to think is true?
Probably like 30-40%. There is true stuff in there. Like the songs he sings are actually real. They just kind of play.
Yeah, of course.
But like with Like a Surgeon, rather than just kind of coming up with a parody song of Like a Virgin, it's because Madonna recognizes that she can, gain more notoriety by getting the Yankovic bump with her song. And so she starts dating Weird Al to, influence him so that every time she comes out with a song, he'll make a parody of it and it'll bump the song up even more popular.
Did Weird Al actually date Madonna?
No, he did not.
Okay.
But Evan Rachel Wood gives a wonderful performance as Madonna. So I don't know if Madonna would enjoy this movie because at the end, not to super spoil anything, but Madonna takes over for Pablo Escobar as like a drug cartel. But I don't know. Like I'm a big fan of Walk Hard. It's great.
Yeah.
I love
hard to top that.
I love me some pops, and like I was thinking about it after I watched this movie, and what's funny about those is that it's kind of parodying a broad swath. It's not parodying Johnny Cash or it's not parodying Justin Bieber. It's parodying all these the machinations of how these movies work. And so that's
seems like this is parodying like the true story or something.
It's parodying his story.
Yeah.
And like I think that it's kind of mileage will vary with it, like a lot of like Pop Star, a lot of the songs are incredibly funny. One, because they're original for the movie, but also it's because they're kind of making fun of different genres of music that are coming out, like that artists are coming out to like make messages about things or something like that. Or with like Walk Hard, like there's a whole section of this movie where like Weird Al's going through a dark period in his career where he's like all on drugs and alcohol and like can't he's like the band's breaking up and all this different types of stuff. But all I was thinking of is Dewey, like with the two women giving him a blowjob, and he's like, "This is a real dark period here, guys."
Now, you told me off mic that this is a movie that feels very aware of Walk Hard, and I'm very curious what you mean by that. Like, does the movie directly reference is it spoofing Walk Hard?
But it knows like how effective Walk Hard is at like spoofing stuff, so it very much like tries to take that energy and like exude it in different places. Like the father figure played by Toby Huss of Weird Al Yankovic in this movie kind of feels like the dad from Walk Hard, except he's not as funny. He's not nearly as funny going, the wrong kid died every 5 seconds. He's more just kind of like very, very dismissive and belligerent that Al can't, that Weird Al can't be playing the accordion and things like that. But it's very cognizant of like how you find the, don't try this shit, Dewey, like those types of scenes. It kind of has like bits like that they kind of try to structure that don't really necessarily, I feel like, work. And it's a bummer because like Daniel Radcliffe's like really leaning into it. I need to see if he actually was singing. I thought I read somewhere that he like the reason he got the role was that they were so impressed with like how he could mimic Weird Al like in the singing scenes, but I could be wrong. But he's like having a hell of a time with this thing. And like I said, most of the people in it are having a hell of a time, but it kind of feels to me like what are those like the kind of not the bits in SNL, but like the pre-taped bits, like the one with like Natalie Portman where she's rapping.
The digital shorts.
Or like Dick in a Box or stuff like that. Yeah. It feels like an hour and 45-minute version of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pop Star, I think, is almost literally that. It's a bunch of SNL people doing their, full hour and a half digital short.
But goddamn, am I going to laugh every time at Bill Hader talking about what is it, frontlining or whatever? Like he does the clears. That's what he does to like just have a good time.
Yeah.
No, like out of the three of them, this is definitely the weakest one. Like I said, there was a couple scenes that got me to laugh. I think mainly I laughed at like, people like Will Forte and Conan, not because of their characters, but because I just enjoy seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you begin the movie and Lin-Manuel Miranda shows up, it really just does, it takes a lot away from your movie.
Who's
So
Lin-Manuel Miranda play?
he's not playing anybody like he's not spoofing anybody. He plays like a nurse or a doctor or something because Weird
Mm.
Al ODs on stage and or whatever, and they have to like revive him or something.
Okay.
So it is what it is. But I would recommend, like I said, I just torrented it because I'm not going to watch it on the Roku channel. So it's not. Is it the worst hour and 40 minutes that you can spend? No. But is it is it going to be in the walk hard pop star tier where you're going to be like humming equal rights all the time? No, it's not there. It's not there. So weird. The Al Yankovic movie or story. It is a movie, but
the Al Yankovic movie.
pretty
That's what it
much,
should be called.
pretty much. I mean, that's Weird Al is in it. I mean, if that's of any interest to
What does
people,
Weird Al do in it?
he plays like a music executive.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like him and Will Forte are these like brothers who are these music executives. Um,
They look
it's
exactly
fine.
alike.
No, it's fine. It's good. But yeah, there you go. But if you do, or you're trying to watch it in like a legal manner, I guess find the Roku channel, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
talk
sure.
about a movie I actually like though, and that's the Banshees of Inisherin, which is the latest from Martin McDonagh, who he wrote and directed this. Let me switch out I get zoned out in these, and then I forgot to like switch these things over.
I think it's the Banshees, right? It's not a
No, it's
ghost
just a
story about a single banshee.
no, it's just one banshee. It's a singular banshee. A banshee that doesn't need no other banshee to haunt this town.
That'd be a good that's Chappie moment. Point to the
Yeah.
screen. That's the Banshee
That's
of
the banshee.
Inisherin.
The Banshees of Inisherin. It's like I said, it's Mark McDonagh. It brings back his two leads from In Bruges, Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. And so the story is the two characters, the Brendan Gleeson and the Colin Farrell character, they live on this remote island that's just off the coast of Ireland. The movie's set in the 1920s,
Oh,
in the midst of the Irish Civil War, which is somewhat pertinent, but not necessarily deeply pertinent to the plot. Um, but well, in a way, it kind of is. It gives you a nice little period feel to it. But yeah, so they're like lifelong friends on this island. But when the movie starts, they have like this running thing where every day at 2 o'clock, Colin Farrell shows up. They go to the pub. They like, spend the rest of the day at the pub because what the hell else do you got to do on like a remote Irish island in the 1920s? Um, but when he shows up, Brendan Gleeson's like not there. He's not engaging with them. And so Colin Farrell like shows up at the pub and it's like but then like, Brendan Gleeson doesn't come. So he's like walking around, like going, like everybody at the pub's going, well, what's his name? Colm. He's like, where's Colm? And he's like, I don't know where Colm is. He's like, did you get cross with him? He's like, I don't know. I don't think maybe I did. So like he spends like most of the day trying to like find Brendan Gleeson again. And then he finds him and Brendan Gleeson is just like, yeah, so I don't want to be your friend anymore.
what?
Like very flatly, just like, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to be, I just don't want to be your friend anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the whole rest of the movie is just like Colin Farrell trying to figure out why this guy doesn't want to be friends with him. And then Brendan Gleeson setting all of these like precedents where if he continues to bug him, this is what he will do.
This
And
sounds fantastic.
and it's just these two stupid men in a pissing contest of stupidity. And it's great. I loved every second of it. It's really funny. You have the scene stealer though. You have Carrie Condon the Irish actress plays Colin Farrell's sister, and she kind of is just constantly like, "This is like, I'm so tired of this pissing contest between these idiots." You have Barry Keoghan, who a lot of people know from like Dunkirk or The Killing of the Sacred Deer. Um, I guess he's gonna play the Joker in like the new Batman movies or whatever.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he was in the Eternals, the Marvel movie that everybody hated. Um, but he plays like the town he plays the town idiot in this movie, really. And he like completely steals every scene that he's in. He's incredibly funny. He's constantly talking about like where are the women he can hit on. And like the first conversation you get with him and Colin Farrell, he's like asking Colin Farrell if he's ever looked at his sister like while she's bathing, and like, can you give him an idea of like what her situation is? And Colin Farrell's like, no, I don't look at my sister while she's bathing. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to know. And he's just kind of a dumbass. But he's just very entertaining at the same time. But um, this one, I love In Bruges. I'm pretty like, I haven't watched Three Billboards since it came out, but was pretty underwhelmed by that one.
Man, Three Billboards is a bad movie. IMO.
Yeah, I kind of want
It's
to
a real disappointment.
I kind of want to rewatch it just to kind of confirm it. But yeah, I remember like this one confirms like the dude understands like just being Irish. Like this is a very Irish movie. And it
Yeah.
kind of, and like I think he kind of tried to bring that to America, and it's like, no, we're very different. Like cultures.
And
You
he
know.
decided to like step on every hot button issue in America
Yeah.
of the day, you know.
Exactly. And so like this one is just deeply Irish, and it's completely focused on these two dumbasses in a pissing contest between one another. And yeah, and so like it's very different from like in a way it's kind of like In Bruges, where it like starts out and it's
Yeah.
very just kind of nonchalant. You're just, like In Bruges, you got these two hitmen, something went down, they're like waiting it out in Bruges, and pretty much they're just supposed to like wander around the city and enjoy it before they get a call from the boss. And like this is very much the same way, where like the majority of the first part of the movie is just Colin Farrell going, why does this guy not want to be my friend anymore? I don't understand it. He's like constantly having conversations with people, and his sister going like, I'm a nice guy. Like everybody says I'm a nice guy. and then going to Brendan Gleeson and going, come on, like I'm a nice guy. And Brendan Gleeson's like, I don't want to talk to you ever again.
Man.
And yeah, and so but then it hits this point where it starts to escalate, and you're just like, shit. Because it's just it's two idiots who are just so committed to this idiocy that they just go to these wild lengths. And like, I don't want to spoil too much because I know you're going to see it in the next couple days, and we can talk about it once you've seen it more like in spoiler territory. But it's honestly like not necessarily a stressful movie, but like it's like an unsettling movie where you're just like, because you're constantly going, guys, is any of this worth it? It just becomes like this like World War I-esque struggle, like where it's like,
God.
you have it's a battle of inches, and it's the stupidest fucking thing, because like really
it continues to be about the question of whether or not Brendan Gleeson is going to be
that's
friend.
the entire movie. And like, I don't think it's super spoilery, but pretty much Brendan Gleeson, like one of the reasons he plays the violin, and you get these wonderful like pub scenes where everybody's in the Irish pub and he's like playing violin. It's wonderful. And I was like, I want to live here and be an idiot who like gets in these pissing contests. But pretty much he tells Colin Farrell's sister, he's just like, yeah, like he's just kind of dense, like he's stupid, and I want to spend the rest of my life like creating music and kind of giving back in that way to people, and that's what I want to do. And yeah, like your brother's just a fucking idiot. And she's just like, yeah, I know he is, but he's also he's a nice person, he's not a bad person. And like yeah, it's just it's real, and I'll be curious to kind of get into this discussion once others have seen it. Like, it is this really, I found it very effective as like this strong movie about like the fragility and stupidity of male friendships,
Mm.
where yeah, there's no reason why, like you see the different relationships that like Colin Farrell's sister in the movie, the Carrie Condon character has, um, and she very much has this, like she's clearly very much more smarter than everybody else. She gets very tired and very impatient with like the other people in the town, who a lot of the other women in town are like these kind of elderly, um, elderly busybody type, small town, small community type women.
Hmm.
And she gets tired of that because she's just like, all they're doing is gossiping and like trying to dig into my life. And all I want to do is like buy something from the convenience store or the corner store or whatever. Um, but at the same time, like it's you get this dichotomy between how she's handling things and how Colin Farrell's handling things, and how he just won't accept that maybe I just can't talk to this guy, that maybe I should just leave him like he constantly, like sometimes he'll do a good job and then he'll just like go back and be like, I'm gonna talk to him now. It has the energy of just like, well, what if I touch it one more time? And you're just like, no.
How small is the cast?
It's not very big. There's probably less than 10 or less
Wow.
characters. You have Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. You have Colin Farrell's sister. You have a couple of the townspeople. I mean, the prominent townspeople are the bar owner, the bartender guy,
Hmm.
a couple of the patrons there at the bar. You have a priest who, because of course it's a Martin McDonagh movie, so you have to have this whole
Yeah.
Catholic ilk to it. That's great.
It honestly sounds more like his brother's movie Calvary than any of his movies.
It's very much more in line with like with John Michael's movies than his movies. It reminded me a lot of Calvary in terms of a lot of the like community relationships there.
Hmm.
So it's very much on that line. But I mean, I kind of went in and I was like, I was I was sold. I as a big fan of In Bruges, I was excited to see Mark McDonagh directing Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson again. And I mean, it satisfied me. I found it incredibly entertaining. There's, again, for the spoilery podcast, I want to talk about the scene that made me laugh the hardest that I've laughed at any movie in this year so far, because it's just like pure, it's nice, pure, just stupid ass people humor. But
Yeah,
very harmless stupid people, humor. Like it's just
right.
like, exactly why he's doing it, but he's just a dumbass. Um it's a lot. I really enjoyed it. I think it's pretty great, and it's probably it'll slide into my favorites of the year for
Very
sure.
nice. Well, I wanted to see it anyway, but now I'm really stoked to see it.
Yeah, it's deep male, two dummies in a pissing contest energy. If that's again, just I'm going to reiterate that again. If that sells you, if you want to watch two dummies in a pissing contest, this is what that movie is.
It is my nightmare to be on the Brendan Gleeson end of that equation of like me just not being that close friends with somebody and they just will not stop.
It's like it's kind of like if I was just like, Andrew, I don't want to be your friend anymore, and then we were like doing episodes and you were like popping into this chat. You're just like, hey guys, what's going on? I was just like, Andrew, I have to focus on things. I'm gonna create something for the world, and you're bringing me down, man. He like is talking about. He's like, we had a whole conversation the other day about what was in your donkey shit, and he's like, it wasn't my donkey, it was my cow shit. Thank you very much.
And pay attention.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But Banshees of Inisherin, it's I think it's playing around the theaters now. So if it's around, seriously, if it's around, you go check that out. Black Panther will be around for a few more weeks. You'll have to see it this weekend.
Oof. Or not at all.
Or that too.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna toss it over to you because I'm tired of talking.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention a movie that is out in theaters now that Zach and I saw at TIFF. We have talked about it very briefly on the podcast, but we were just kind of giving general impressions. And that movie is Decision to Leave, the new film by Park Chan-wook, director of Old Boy and many other revenge movies from the 2000s, I think. And more recently, more notably, in our opinion, The Handmaiden, which is easily his best movie, in my opinion. One of the best movies of the last decade. We did a whole episode on it that you should go listen to. Paige and Jesse talk very intelligently about that movie, and Zach was there too. But anyways, this new movie, his first movie since The Handmaiden, which, I was greatly anticipating just because of, that it seems like he kind of switched gears in his filmography in a great way. And to spend so long kind of ruminating on the next project, I'm like very hyped to see what that's going to be. It did not quite meet those perhaps like astronomical expectations, but this is a extremely fun movie. Extremely like innovative or not innovative, but like thoughtful and exciting in the way that it's shot. It is a pretty standard plot. It's a police procedural about a detective who's investigating a murder case. A husband has been, like this hiker guy has been killed, and his wife is mourning him. And he begins to suspect the wife is, in fact, responsible for the murder. Meanwhile, he's also developing somewhat of a crush on this woman.
But she's also hot.
She's also hot. She's the woman from you say Black Cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's also in Long Day's Journey into Night. Another one of the best movies of the decade.
Just can I pause real quick and can we get her in more movies? Because one, fantastic actress, but also very hot. Like in all the movies you just mentioned, including this one, she's hot in those movies.
It's true. And that is very much like a tool that is being utilized in this movie for plot reasons. 100%. Right? The first interrogation scene is like a first date. It is framed as such, like all the little awkward, self-conscious body language shifts, and also like just making small talk and looking at each other's eyes and laughing. There's again, like so many cool little camera choices and editing choices, a lot of interesting transitions and match cuts between images. It just appears to be kind of like cinematically firing at all times, even though you are watching a pretty straightforward story. And I went in expecting a lot of twists because The Handmaiden is a movie with a lot of twists, just twists on twists. It keeps sort of revealing and unfolding itself. This movie is kind of teasing you with a twist. It is expecting you to see a twist coming, but then there's more to the movie after that, in a way that is very unconventional structurally, but I think it works for the most part. I don't think the back half of it is quite as strong as the front half of it, and I think it does kind of like settle down on some of the more ambitious like ways of doing shots and interesting angles and stuff once it kind of switches gears. But extremely entertaining movie. It's just compulsively watchable in the way that like some of the best David Fincher movies are. And I think that even if you've not seen another Park Chan-wook movie, even if you don't watch a lot of foreign films, like I think this is a broadly enjoyable popcorn movie that people need to go watch.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Park Chan-wook is a really good cross. Like I was actually going to write about it in the TIFF reviews. But Bong Joon-ho got a lot of attention from Korea with like things like that.
Right.
I think I like Park Chan-wook more.
I think that he has more movies I like.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
he's just more interested. Not that again, like, this is saying that Bong Joon-ho is not interesting with, like, how he directs this, because I mean, Parasite's insanely well directed,
Hmm.
but, like, I was when we were watching Decision to Leave and TIFF, I was thinking a lot like, Fincher is a good touch point for, like, people to think about, but I think even farther back, because Fincher is pulling from him, is it's very Hitchcockian, like,
Oh yeah.
it very
Hmm.
much feels like a Hitchcock movie where you mentioned, like, it's a very thin is the wrong word, but it's a very small story. Like, it's not,
Hmm.
it's not like The Handmaiden where it's pulling all these different threads, or even like Old Boy, which is a very, like, kind of vast movie.
Right.
This
That's
one,
like a Greek tragedy or something.
yeah, this
Yeah.
one's pretty simple,
Hmm.
but what engages you is just he's constantly using, like, he's constantly using filmmaking how it should be used to influence you and kind of pull you into the movie,
Hmm.
like the way he's framing the conversations that you were describing.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting pulled in because the actress is hot, and you can tell like there's just kind of like this perverse sexuality that Park Chan Wook is shooting these, like there is like this perversion to it that's
There
very.
is also only one sex scene in the entire movie, and it's not between those characters, and it's extremely awkward and uncomfortable.
Mhm.
There's very little sexual content on screen. One of the more intimate moments between the characters is them holding hands while they're handcuffed to each other in a police car.
Ex- yeah.
But the movie just kind of exudes this sensuality and longing that is like honestly really amusing.
Well, and it kind of works from The Handmaiden, which also is kind of working, not necessarily because the relationship is, like, taboo for us, the audience, but,
Hmm.
like, you kind of feel like a line's being crossed between the two characters in The Handmaiden when they start, like, kind of
Yeah.
becoming interested in one another, and that's what's engaging and tantalizing about their relationship to a degree. And this is
Hmm.
kind of the same way where
Right. It's
it's
a forbidden romance.
exactly,
Yeah.
and it's not just like he presents it through the story, it's also how he shoots it.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell this dude is super horny. And, like, and, like, he just films it that way, you
he
know?
uh he this is more of a plot thing than the way Park Chan-wook films it, but he has to take all these pictures of her when he's like doing stakeout, and he like keeps them on his like big conspiracy cork board in his apartment. And some of them are like pictures of her scratched up leg or something. He's
Mhm.
like, don't throw that one away, it's too pretty.
Yeah, he's just like a weird perv,
Yeah.
and he's not, I don't know, he's not a harmful one, he's just kind of just a weirdo.
No,
He's
yeah.
just a weirdo,
He's
who,
just
like,
awkward and uncomfortable.
yeah, who,
Yeah.
like, understands that Tang Wei is fucking gorgeous. But yeah, I just kind of I like that. You don't see. I was having this conversation with somebody recently. Like, movies are so sexless now
Hmm.
that, like, something about that where it's not even about, like, let's just have this graphic sex scene or anything. It's just like, let's just watch, like, some, like, kind of pervy weirdos, like, be like, kind of circle each other for two and a
Which
half hours.
he does the full on graphic sex scene stuff in The Handmaiden, and that is
Mhm.
honestly like the gold standard for that in movies, I think.
Mhm.
But here he's able to like pull all the way back on that. But the movie still has this like feeling of innuendo the entire time, like some of the best Hitchcock movies do. You know, think about
Mhm.
the last shot of North by Northwest with the the train going through the tunnel.
Mhm.
This has a similar vibe to it.
Yeah, and that's what I really, like, liked about it, because um not just, like, in major American movies, but just American movies in general, you don't necessarily get that sexuality, like, to that degree.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, let's get really gratuitous and, like, graphic with it, or let's just have nothing at all. And I kind of like
Mhm.
Park Chan Wook. Yeah, he has the sex scenes in Handmaiden, but a lot of the movie is him just kind of being in that middle of, like, nah, but also, like, they just kind of want to fuck, but they, like, can't. to a degree, and so, like, they're just kinda horny. Like, what's and, like, that's what a lot of the movie is. It also has, and you only get him for, like, the first part of the movie, but I love his, not assistant, but, like, the other detective that works with him in the first part of the movie, who's just also kind of just like a
The
dummy.
guy who's just like really raging and
Yeah.
he's a bad drunk. Yeah.
That guy's funny. He's just kind of a dumbass.
Yeah.
I like a
Absolutely.
good dumbass.
Though
As we
his assistant in the second part of the movie, who's like constantly asking him questions
That's
and is
also
like
good.
a little nerd taking notes of all of his wisdom, is also hilarious.
Yeah, I also like that too. But yeah, Decision to Leave.
Decision to Leave. Good
If it's
movie.
playing around you, seriously, it's great.
Yeah.
And I think Park Chan Wook was supposed to do like a Amazon series or do some sort of like series. I think that's what he's
Well,
supposed
he
to do.
already did a series with Florence Pugh called Little Drummer
Oh,
Girl. I've
oh,
not seen it, but I honestly would really
I
love
haven't
to.
either.
Yeah.
Huh. I'm gonna look that because
Florence
little
Pugh is unfortunately feels kind of trapped in
dun,
the
dun, dun,
studio system at the
little
moment. So it'd be
drummer.
cool to watch
Hey
her
Andrew,
with Park Chan-wook.
Guess what? Streaming service it's on.
Is it on Roku?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
it's on the Roku channel. No,
I
it's
thought this was an Amazon original or something.
no, it's on. It's produced by BBC and AMC. So I guess in America you could probably watch it through AMC. But I just like that. But like on the watching options, I just see Roku channel. So there you go.
Wow.
Sign up for the Roku channel. You can watch The Little Drummer Girl, and you can watch Weird, the Al Yankovic Story.
Sounds like a deal.
Sounds like a deal. All right. So I'm gonna cut your last movie,
Oh,
but
that's fine. Yeah.
but we're gonna go into break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk about how we not we, but this particular actress doesn't want to be a man
Yep.
in 1918. After this,
It's really hard.
she just wants to smoke and hang out, as we
I'm
all
going
do.
to relocate so that I can charge my computer.
Good.
Okay. Now I'm going to go to the bathroom. BRB.
All right, I'll just stand here and stare at the audience while I read baseball news. Good swing. This is killer time. This is when you need to just like skip ahead, y'all. Just skip ahead. Skip ahead. And that's why I think Nancy Pelosi's husband was gay. Oh shoot, sorry. We're just being a little topical.
Wouldn't that be a hot take on that story?
Yes.
I may have found out what was wrong with my debit card.
Nice. You have no money?
I was trying to buy something that ships from the UK. And they were like, "You are a robot."
Whenever I say this, I think of like the John Mulaney bit where he's like, come, tell me, which one of these is a street guy? Please.
Man, they're getting difficult.
Do the robot test.
Please let me type in my number.
Getting tagged in posts for.
Are you getting tagged in on Twitter?
No, on Facebook. People tagging me in shit. I want to go. I was having Gen Z people explain Be Real to me. Have you engaged in Be Real?
Be Real? Mm-hmm. Oh wait, is that the thing where you get 1 minute to post what you're doing every day?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anyone actually used it.
Oh yeah, no, it's like a bit like I guess we could technically be in the age range, but I think we're a little bit out. I think probably the highest is like 26, 27-ish and below. But yeah, I don't know. I had one of our reporters explaining it to me, and I was like, that seems like another fucking thing that I have to keep an eye on that I don't want to. I hate already what I have to keep an eye on. So
what do people enjoy about it?
It's supposed to be like the antithesis of like Instagram. So rather than just posting like, oh, like the world, I'm so happy, my life's so exciting. It's just like, no, it's not. Like I'm just like at a grocery store right now or something.
Sure, but like, why do you want to look at it? Why do you want to look at other people's Be Reals?
I think it comes from like they were born in like emerged, like they had no non-social media like like when they were in an engaged mind, they've constantly had social media,
right?
And so it's like a rejection of it for them to kind of like it's not playing to what social media demands out of them. It's kind of going, you could be like on the toilet taking a shit and you have to take the picture because that's being real.
Yeah, but still a social media site. Like, if you want to reject social media, just stop using social media.
Listen, I'm not trying to bring you over to it. I'm just explaining what it is as it was
I'm just
explained to
shadow
me.
boxing with Zoomers in my brain.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I was just like, oh, okay, well,
I
like,
have to argue with Zoomers about like the limits of absurdist humor in my
that
little
seems
meme
like
analysis
exhausting.
club. Yeah. I once got a meme sent to me that was just a stock photo of a t-shirt that had the Eye of Sauron on it. And I was told that that was a joke and that it was in fact funny.
Did you like go? Well, can you explain the joke to me?
No, you can't explain jokes. They stop being funny according to, my audience.
I just go, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. My mom had a nice, like, not viral moment, but viral for the sake of her middle school, where she was on. Have you ever seen the TikToks where there's like a gazillion different people who do it, where they like set up at a college or somewhere, and they go like, if you can like sing me a song from memory completely, I'll give you $100, or if you
Wow.
can like dunk this basketball, something like that. Like it like has a sign that says do this thing and I'll give you money.
Mm-hmm.
And like somebody was at UTC in Chattanooga, and I guess she was like walking around it waiting for my brother to finish class, and they had a sign that said, if you hand me a dog, I'll give you $100. And so this random dude like ran up to her because she was walking her dog, was like, hey, can I borrow your dog? And so I'm watching this video because she sends it to me, or she sends it to us like no context. She just sends it to me. And I'm like, are you like
just a video of somebody handing her dog to someone and receiving
well, it was great because
$100.
she just sends the video no context, and I'm watching it, and then I'm like, is that our dog? And then I see like her in the background coming, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And so yeah, and so this guy like hands the dog to these people, and my mom's like engaged in the thing. But really the takeaway is that she did not get the $100. She let the kid have it. And I was like, fuck that kid, it's our dog.
You need 50-50.
She was like,
I think it's a group effort.
She was like, he offered, but he's just a poor college kid. I'm like, yeah, well, no, he's probably not. He's probably some fucking trust fund kid. He literally saw the sign and said, what? Bet? And then like ran off to go find a dog. So I was like, no, fuck that kid. Anyway, Gen Z social media corner for those interested.
Man, keeping the generation wars alive.
I was getting into this argument recently of just like the asinine waste of time it is to argue over generation stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just like,
generations are barely real.
They're not real.
Yeah.
And we're all gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
From the same shit. And so like, I don't give a shit that you're Gen X and you think, I'm like, I don't fucking care.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody was talking about how Gen X is like we just we roll below the we just don't start anything. We just kind of mind our own business. I'm like, well, okay, cool. That's great. Well, when the world implodes, we'll remember you for that. We'll put a statue. Lazy shits over here. I was just like, Jesus Christ.
Make an effort.
Like, just like, is that all you have?
Be more annoying.
Well, it's just like that's all you have to offer in like conversation is, well, I'm a Gen X. Cool. Good for you.
Let's talk about this Ernst Lubitsch.
Let's talk about not being a man.
Yeah.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 429 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be kicking off our Ernst Lubitsch series with 1918's I Don't Want to Be a Man. Directed by Ernst Lubitsch from a script by Hans Kralli and Lubitsch. The film stars Ossi Oswalda, Kurt Getz, and Ferry Sikla. A teenage tomboy, tired of being bossed around by her strict guardian, impersonates a man so she can have more fun. She quickly discovers that being the opposite sex isn't as easy as she had hoped for. What ensues is a gender-bending comedy decades ahead of its time. I Don't Want to Be a Man was a short Lubitsch made immediately before directing his first feature. And it was produced by his team of regular collaborators who worked almost exclusively with him from 1916 until the director left for America, photographing all of his German features and including a set designer who designed most of his German films. And it was filmed during the final stages of World War One, but it doesn't really engage with that in the film. That's really all I have in terms of notes. There's not
Where
really.
did you find info on it?
I saw some little kind of movie website talk that had some stuff about it. I think it was pulled from like a Lubitsch, one of the Lubitsch biographies or something.
Interesting.
But not too
when,
much.
When you hear people talk about Lubitsch, or when you see his stuff put online to stream, the silent stuff is barely existent, or feels like it barely exists in the conversation of Ernst Lubitsch movies. I mean, I guess it's kind of like how people don't talk about Hitchcock's silent era, somebody like that. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to include one of these silents in the series just because I wanted to see one of them. And there are some really nice transfers of some of his silent movies on YouTube. Eureka did this one, and it's just free and looks really nice. Or I guess somebody's putting up for free. I don't know if Eureka did.
Yeah, I saw Clooney Brown for free too. I was like, well, I'll remember that for later in this series.
Yeah, this movie actually pairs kind of nicely with Clooney Brown. I know it's not his first movie, but Clooney Brown is perhaps his last movie, depending on how you want to measure it. And it feels like it is closing a loop that this movie opens. But I was also reminded of, do you remember a couple years ago when it was an episode in Young Critics about some silent shorts, and we did the consequences of feminism, which
very same energy there.
Yeah, where it just basically like flips. That one is flipping gender roles and like showing you men at home taking care of babies and women like leading business meetings and stuff like that. And it's just kind of
I always remember the scene where they're like in the bar and like the women are just like smoking cigars and chugging beers.
And
that's
like
also great.
Maybe that's meant to be some sort of a like sincere statement on traditional gender roles being superior, but it's by a woman, so that automatically kind of like changes the way you view it. And B, it's just kind of silly.
It's super silly.
It's just so funny. And this is bringing a similar energy, but I think it ends up going some stranger places than that does. I mean, there are parts of it. There's a stretch in the middle that's very concerned with like, oh, don't men have it so hard? You know, they have to do things like stand up for women on public transit and things like that.
It's a real struggle. Like,
doesn't it suck when women are just like constantly throwing themselves at you at a dance? Like, man, like, it's so hard to be a man. But yeah, like once the movie kind of like gets that out of its system, and after the first like 20-25 minutes have passed, it ends up going some weird places, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I also enjoyed it. It's also funny to kind of just see the way Lubitsch takes it. It's not one of those silent movies that's kind of let's play around with some sort of trick, you know, like it's not really that tricky when she dresses up as a man, you know, there's not really much of a trick to it.
Right.
And so it's more built on like the scenarios that he's creating. And while they're not as like complex scenarios necessarily as like some of the stuff you will see later in the series, like in To Be or Not to Be,
Oh yeah.
or Shop Around the Corner, or Clooney Brown, like just the kind of character scenarios where silly stuff's happening. You still kind of see a degree of him planning out like the kind of how this is going to lead to a bit or lead to a joke in those. That's, I don't necessarily feel like is like groundbreaking or anything for a
Yeah.
silent movie, but at least in terms of this series where we're trying to kind of map Lubitsch to a degree, I kind of
Yeah.
see his like wheels turning in his mind of like, how can I get a laugh out of this without it just being, to your point about consequences of feminism, just kind of silly.
Now, there were moments that made me laugh, but I felt like this was kind of light on things I would call jokes. Are there jokes that I'm just not registering as jokes because they're not that funny, or am I, or do you
No,
feel like
it's
he's using a different kind of humor here?
no, I think he, rather than it being like To Be or Not to Be, has like jokes in it, like Jack Benny's delivering jokes. This one is more just, it's kind of like it's similar to Consequences of Feminism, where it's setting up scenarios that are kind of funny
Yeah.
because she is dressed up as a man in this or whatever. But I feel like he's at least trying to play with it a little bit differently than that movie. I think he's kind of like trying to not add like a giant depth to them, but at least make it so it's not just, oh, look at these silly. There's a couple things where it's like, oh, look at these women smoking a cigar, but I feel like he also tries to just set up stuff to that the scenario just in general is funny. It's not just funny that she's doing man stuff.
Right. Like the funniest scenario to me is when it's after the end of Act 1, where she's realized that, like, okay, I'm going to have to live under this like domineering guardian. So what do I do? And she like gets herself really femmed up, and she goes into town and it goes into a tailor and asks them to like tailor her a man's suit. And there's just like a dozen dudes for some reason working in this empty tailor shop, all just like salivating over her and like arguing over like who is going to be the one to take her measurements. Like there's no joke there, but it's just funny because of the energy that gets created and sustained in the scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no jokes in it, but like, I think Lubitsch at the same time is good, as we'll probably talk about later on, at like setting up scenario, like setting up a scene where it's not necessarily a straight joke, but you're going to get funny things out of it. Like Clooney Brown is a lot of that, where it's just like, let me set up a scenario here that she's
Right.
going to kind of instigate that will lead to a lot of laughs.
Absolutely.
Like I always think of the in To Be or Not to Be, just the whole like the whole bit of so they call me concentration camp Earhart. Like,
Right.
just
That's
that,
a joke. Yeah.
like that's a joke, but he also like sets it up to be a running thing where he just keeps saying it. And yeah, this one is just more I don't know. I think you see Lubitsch's the filmmaking brain working of like, I'm gonna set up this person in point A, and then point A is gonna batter around to different things that'll make you laugh. It's just not as effective as his later stuff because it's his
not.
first movie.
I thought it was really expressive, though, in terms of like how he directs and shoots his actors. I think a lot of times just the facial expressions they're making are very funny.
Yes.
Even if the scenario they're in is not particularly funny. Like the one that stuck with me the most is when the main character is at the ball dressed as a man, trying to get the attention, trying to steal the girl of the guy that she's actually there to try to get with. And like she's just making eyes at this lady from across the way, and like I can't describe it, but just the facial the expression on the face of this woman who is like being ogled / flirted with by this very femme looking dude from across the room is just hysterical to me.
Yeah. And all of the actors in this are pretty great.
Hmm.
The lead actress like really is like rolling with it. Um, but all of the actors, I like that there's like a acceptance of like this is just the reality that we're living in. I appreciate that. But there's some who are just like like the woman you're describing who's like, what the hell's going on? But there's also like I like just the simpleness of like, no, this is a person who this is just the reality that we have settled in, and this is how
Hmm.
this person is interested in me, and that is final. It's a very
And
stupid bit, but I
another
enjoy.
like how this is the universe that we're in. The first thing that happens in the movie is she gets her cigarette taken away by her governess, and the
Yeah, she's playing
governess is like,
poker.
I don't understand why women smoke cigarettes. And then she like takes a single puff of the cigarette and she starts like
She's,
dancing around.
she's like, fuck yeah. And that's the shit I love, where it's just like I don't understand the. Well, shit.
Oh,
That's kind of what I was like hoping. Like the movie was just her going into different scenarios and doing that, and then somebody's going, "No, that's not what women do," and then they just like get shit. And by the end of the movie, everybody's just been like turned
right.
in doing into like the universe in this, and over the course of the 45 minutes, it's just completely
Mhm.
overturned, and like all the women are smoking cigarettes and things like that.
Right. I think one thing that is in this movie that is like an interest of Lubitsch very early on is that idea, like the question of like what is proper and versus like what is enjoyable or what is good. Like this is, I think that something about his humor, his humor almost always feels like it is circling around like politeness, manners, customs associated with like the elite. Um, and we are kind of in that milieu in this movie. Like she's the daughter of like some financier. I was a little unclear on what that guy's whole deal
I
is.
like when like he gets the leather and they're like, "Yeah, the thing that you wanted is happening. You need to go there."
And
Like,
then he gets on a ship and never comes back.
yeah. It was like, sir, you shouldn't have just followed that letter. The letter was so poorly written. It literally, the English translation was, "Yeah, that thing that you wanted is good, so you should go." And he's like, "Yeah, all right. The letter
uh,
says so."
but like before, he's expecting her to kind of like stay a proper lady while he's gone, right? And I think the first line of the movie is the governess seeing her playing poker and smoking and saying like, is that something for a proper lady to do?" um and so like people kind of gleefully dancing over that line, or people who are insistent that that line needs to stay there but they themselves are tempted by it,
Mhm.
feels like a thing that shows up in a lot of Lubitsch movies, and all the way to Clooney Brown, which is that's kind of the main thing that movie is doing.
Yeah. One, it kind of is like a degree of what we were talking about earlier with Hitchcock and Park Chan Wook, where it's like there's like this kind of tantalizing interest in kind of like tiptoeing up to the line and kind of dancing around it,
Right.
and, just to kind of go, almost thumb your nose at the whole thing. And like this one is, and I think this movie very much starts that for Lubitsch. Lubitsch is kind of doing that in a very different way than those two filmmakers are. But like you think of like the minute that the dad leaves, and like he's like, "Be good for the governess," and
Mm-hmm.
and the woman is just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a joy for you," and like jumps on somebody's back and is like, like.
Also, what is this governess's job? Like, is it she hires, or is it the dad or the uncle who hires the other guardian to come in? Like, when they get a second guardian, and I'm wondering, like, what is the governess there for? Like, isn't she just like an advanced nanny? That is my understanding of what a governess is, like a nanny that teaches.
Is Julie Andrews a governess and Sound of Music? Is that kind of her thing?
I think so.
Yeah, she's a governess. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have other people who watch the kids in that movie too. I'm just going to
That's
base
true.
all of my knowledge on governesses off of The Sound of Music.
That is the most reliable source. Yeah.
They're also against Nazis, so we're pushing up against the line there in Germany and post World War or close to post World War I Germany.
What year is this again? I Don't Want to Be Man.
1918.
1918. And Lubitsch did flee the Nazis, right?
That's why I came to America.
Right.
But yeah, this is around the time where they're like, this is if you caught up with the new edition, the new version of All Quiet on the Western Front, this is the tail end of that movie. But yeah, I think from what I was reading, it came out a little bit later, in World War One. So the war hadn't ended, but it was getting close. So it also that's also like it's kind of interesting just in terms of German film history, because they hadn't got to like Ufa and the more Nazi the movies with like Leni Riefenstahl, not just like the propaganda movies, but also like the let's do German heritage propaganda of like the mountain movie and things like that.
What is UFA?
UFA is is it the Nazi production company?
Oh yeah.
Am I doing that? Am I saying that correctly? Or it's the correct? Yeah, UFA.
Now, I don't know that much about German cinema in general, but I know that like when I tend to get pointed towards a German movie from this time period, it is almost always a German expressionist movie. And this feels way more like a lot of the silent clowns that I'm used to in America, in America's silent history. Was this type of silent movie as like prominent in Germany?
Yeah, it's just I think it. This is the historical fact. I'm just kind of guessing that these types of movies were so like you think of German expressionism, that's coming now. That's probably starting to come out in 1918, more prominent in 1920 with Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and things like that. So that's coming post-war. It's probably starting now because the Germans already kind of feel like, oh shit, we're losing this thing. But this is more in line with like just normal ass movies that would be coming out of the German film industry, the French film industry, the British film industry, the American film industry, like just kind of like movies. That's why like Consequences of Feminism is a good touch point, because it's just kind of it's just kind of one of those random short movies that was coming out, but it doesn't. It's just, and that's probably maybe where Lubitsch, why people, to your point earlier, that like people don't generally talk about his silent era movies or a lot of his German movies, just because they're not as, Lubitsch is not doing what Murnau and Lang and people like that are doing.
Yeah, and I don't see a lot of German cinema talked about pre German expressionism. So I wonder like if it's just not canonized in the same way, or if there is just less of it. I don't know.
I think it's more German movies just don't get picked up in academia or scholarship before then. Just because the French up to that point, the French or the Americans up to that point are doing similar things but better. Like you're going to be more engaged with Méliès and in America, people a lot of the shorts they were doing, things like right at that point, there's just more, at least when you're reading academic work, it's much more geared toward those two countries, and then Germany picks up in the 20s,
right?
So it's less, I think it's just a quality thing, but it's just like Lubitsch didn't really seem to engage in that style of movie like the others did, which is kind of interesting.
That style being German expressionism?
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. Like, I mean, I've talked in video essays and other places about like where that kind of comes from. And so like
Mhm.
I'll be curious to kind of dig into more about him, and like because like I know why Murnau and Lang left. Like they were very much and they're probably in the same realm as him of like very like against the Nazis, but also like wanting this. They also like wanted this creative freedom to kind of make their movies, and that was getting pinched by Goebbels and the in UFA and the propaganda machine.
Mhm.
Um, and so I wonder. I'm sure Lubitsch was the same way, but it's not like his. I feel like he started to garner weight. Like where there, you focus more on Murnau and Lang pre-America.
Mhm.
He's a little bit more post-America, if that makes sense.
I'm
Or
sure
like
that the Nazis. I mean, I'd be curious to know, like, to what extent did Lubitsch have to do work with the UFA before leaving to go to America? Um, but I'm sure the Nazis would not have smiled upon some of the ways in which like traditional gender roles get flouted here.
sure, yeah, no, definitely. I don't know. I like I'll be curious. I'll probably try to do some research before next week and kind of even though Smiling Lieutenant is an American movie,
That's an
correct?
American movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll still it'd be kind of interesting to kind of get that backstory on like where he was sitting and how and his relationships with the German film industry leading up to his
Hmm.
departure were because like Murnau and Lang and Billy Wilder and people like that, it's a little bit more pronounced. Um,
Now, what's your sense of like Lubitsch as a director and like where he kind of sits in film discourse? I feel like I do not hear him talked about quite as much as a lot of his contemporaries working in like the American cinema.
mhm.
Um, but he is among my favorite directors. Like he is extremely good.
He the equivalency I would compare him to in terms of American directors is he's kind of in the same realm as like Preston Sturges,
Yeah, that makes
where
sense.
people who are making movies revere the hell out of him.
Hmm.
Like you read about like um
Billy Wilder had the "What
about
would Lubitsch do" thing on his
exactly.
door.
Or but you read like from Spielberg and other people, like they love Preston Sturges. And you like watch a
Hmm.
Preston Sturges movies, and the more you watch them, you kind of can understand because of the way he's able to craft the it's again like it's back to what we were talking about before. Like Lubitsch and Sturgis are creating these scenarios and kind of operating within those those lines. While I feel like a lot more the directors that you're going to talk about more are much more controlling is like too hard of a word, but they're much more like structured on like this stuff is reflective of this style. Like I don't like I think that Lubitsch and Sturgis have a style, but it's a very subtle style. It's not something that you can sit there and immediately go like, oh,
Right. I mean,
that's a Sturgis movie.
there's that phrase that people throw around, or that critics threw around, I guess, the Lubitz touch.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know if I've ever seen like a super clear articulation of what it is, because it is a little bit, I don't know, just vaporous, I guess. He doesn't have like a particular camera trick or
Mhm.
directorial style you can point to. There's not like an aesthetic of a Lubitsch movie, right? But
Mhm.
there is a certain feel and vibe to the humor that is a little hard to put your finger on, I think.
Yeah, and that's why I say like he I think that's why he gets left out of the conversation because I
Hmm.
think the while there are people like there's still like that kind of casual level of film scholarship that are still like if you're going to go back you're going to kind of hit the highlights, and I don't necessarily feel like he immediately flows to the top of the highlights because he is very subtle. And the same
Hmm.
with like Sturgis. But at the same time, like the ones who are like deeply engaged in like filmmaking and structure and narrative told through like filmmaking, I
Hmm.
think that's why they immediately latch on to Lubitsch and Sturgis because Lubitsch, I mean, like in this one, you could probably turn the text off of this movie and still
Yeah.
follow along with it because he's able to guide you cinematically through it effectively.
Right. And I guess I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more like silent era flashiness, which, in the silent era, a lot of filmmakers were, having a lot of fun with like how the image can be manipulated.
Hmm.
Um, and that's not here, but it's also like a movie that's very grounded in reality, despite the fact that these are cartoon characters that we're looking at. Um, and yeah, like it doesn't seem to have like particularly high ambitions, but it's doing what it's doing really well, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And like I think that's kind of what throws people off too. Like there's supposed to be there's supposed to be like a degree of ambition that's in the text or on the screen that like you go, this is why I'm supposed to engage with this movie as like an important
Right.
older movie.
The only one
Um
of his that really has that would be To Be or Not to Be.
yeah, and that's usually the one that pops up on the lists and such, just because
Hmm.
it does, yeah, have this it does pull you in a little bit.
It gets heavy and serious by the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a movie that, it's dealing with Nazis.
Yeah.
So, yeah, even though it makes fun of a lot of it, there's still like this serious touch to it. And I think that's kind of the thing as well, is maybe that's, and we'll figure it out as we go along the way, but maybe that's the Lubitsch touch, is he's able to kind of go, yeah, we're gonna laugh and make fun of this stuff, but we're not ever gonna like take the we're not gonna take like the meaning out of it. Like it still means
Mm,
something,
yeah.
like like in the break, the YouTube people got to listen to you describe the joke of the stock image of a picture of a T-shirt with the Eye of Sauron on it. That's supposed to be a joke from a Gen Z person, but you can't explain it because it's not. Because if you explain it, it's not funny.
Yeah.
And like so, and it's just like it's like pulling the humor out of, oh, you don't know what this is, and it has no meaning, and like that's, I guess, long way around it, is like that's what it is Lubitsch never does that. He's like, there's always meaning, but we can also find a way to
Yeah.
make fun of it.
I feel like there's often some sort of implicit commentary in the humor in his movies too. Like even when they get real silly, there's
Mhm.
usually some sort of thing being said about like social norms or class or whatever. Like he's playing with those things in the same way that like Chaplin was playing with them,
Mhm.
in like Modern Times and City Lights and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like in something like Shop Around the Corner, which kind of has this class structure to it. Like he doesn't stray away from that.
Yeah, it's never like truly slapstick, I would say. Like it's kind of comedy of wit, if not always like satire.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of also thinking about like his style of humor compared to like Howard Hawks, after just recently watching Bringing Up Baby or His Girl
Mm.
Friday, which is also a witty sense of humor. Um, but or that those two are on
His
like the
Girl
level of like,
Friday, I think, is a good comparison point for most of Lubitsch's stuff.
yeah, but also something like, like a Marx Brothers movie, like Duck Soup or something. Which, we've talked about the Marx
Hmm.
Brothers. Groucho's just tossing out jokes at rapid pace, so some are hitting and some are not. But you don't have time to like sit there and like really think about it to like
Right.
figure it out. And like in Howard Hawks the same way, like he's throwing out jokes at like a rapid pace, and Lubitsch is almost like a slowed down version of that, because he's dishing
Yeah.
out the same quality of jokes, but he's not hiding it behind rapid fire. He's just kind of
It's much more
like,
considered and like,
yeah.
yeah, like doled out in like, I don't know, thoughtful ways. It feels like, even if the jokes don't land, which like sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I would also say, like, despite the fact we're starting with this one, because we're going chronologically through his filmography as we always would with any director. I would not tell people to start here. Like if you've gotten all the way through this episode and are thinking about whether or not you should watch this movie, I would say you probably don't until you've watched the other Lubitsch movies in the series, and then circle back to this to see where he started, because this doesn't feel like it would really hook anybody in like the project of Ernst Lubitsch's cinema.
No, no, I agree with that. This is definitely one, even though we're starting with this. This is the one that you come to after you've watched. I mean, I've seen a number of his movies, and I kind of we're talking, to a degree extensively about like how it works within his overall oeuvre. And I think you kind of need that back knowledge to understand this. But at the same time, I think it's not entertain, like not entertaining by any stretch. So
for sure, it's also 45 minutes. It's so not a slog to sit through.
Mm-hmm. So no, I agree. I think it's pretty great. It's fun.
It is fun.
It's 45 minutes. Y'all, come on, y'all. Don't make me get going again.
Can we also talk about how strange this movie's ending is? Like, we haven't really gotten into where this plot goes, but I guess we could spoil it at this point if we're telling people not to watch the movie. So like, she gets this surrogate dad. Someone hires a surrogate dad to watch her while her dad / uncle is off looking after a thing. And I get like the second this guy walks in the door, she makes a face like, "Ooh, he's hot." Like this is gonna be an interesting experience of getting bossed around by this hot guy. So eventually she dresses up as a man. She tries to steal his girl at a dance, but then like they just kind of start making out, the guys, or the guy and the supposed guy. He finds out that she is a she at the end of the movie, and that's like somewhat cause for celebration because now they can be together in like a accepted heterosexual way, but he's also like her surrogate dad. It's very weird.
I don't understand it. It very much throws me for a loop, but I don't know what to tell y'all. So I don't.
The governess tells him to go wake her up, and he's like, "I'm the best at waking people up. Let me tell you." And he wakes her up by like, "Oh hey, we can be together."
Which that's definitely a way to wake somebody up. That's definitely a choice. And I don't know. I say it's a strange movie overall. It's not like it's just there's just like a chaotic energy to the entire thing constantly. And that's what kind of makes it fun. Like you don't see too many chaotic energy movies made at this time. A lot of like silly movies are silly, but this one just kind of is like like guns in the air type situation.
It tries to wrap back around to that moral of like, well, men have it hard too. Like the last line of the movie is, well, I wouldn't want to be a man. But that moral doesn't feel like it sticks because we've been so devolved into chaos for such a long period of time by the time we get to that point.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's to that point, like I would, if you don't watch it now, like if you watch through the rest of the series and some of the other Lubitsch movies, even past like what we've talked about in this one, like we've talked about Trouble in Paradise and things like that in previous episodes, like watch through some of that and then like come back to this if you kind of dig what he's doing, because this is definitely worth checking out because it's just so it may not unlock Lubitsch for you, but it'll definitely go like what What a wacky movie to kick things off with. Just a weirdo.
Speaking of Trouble in Paradise, that is not one on our series just because we've done an episode on it before. But that is one that could unlock Lubitsch for people if they wanted to start there.
Is that my first? I think so. It might have been my first.
It's real good.
It's very good. Yeah, no, that's a good. I would start with that one. To Be or Not to Be is an easy one. I wouldn't. You could watch Shop Around the Corner, but it's not. I don't feel like it's entertaining. But I don't feel like it's going to give you the pure Lubitsch there.
It's a little bit more of a sleeper.
Yeah, and it's it feels very much like a Lubitsch to kind of doing a one for them type situation. But fun fact, you got Margaret Sullivan and Jimmy Stewart in it. Same year they filmed Mortal Storm, so check out Mortal Storm.
Yeah,
also.
Jimmy Stewart is Hungarian in Shop Around the Corner. I think
he does a Hungarian accent. It's the same.
Yeah.
Oh! Is he German or is he American in Mortal Storm? It happens in Germany.
He's German in Mortal Storm. Yeah. Oh, he's in Budapest. Oh, this is Hungary. He's Hungarian. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. He sounds like It's a Wonderful Life in both of them. He doesn't know inflection.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts on I Don't Want to Be a Man?
No, I feel like we covered it. It's a 45-minute movie. There's not
we talked
much to it.
We talked for 36 minutes. It would be weird if we talked about it longer than its actual runtime. All right. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we list all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you would like to support the show, whether it's $1, $5, whatever you'd like to give, patreon.com/Cinematary. You can donate there. Thank you so much to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Corey Willingham, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marsathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for being supporters. Next week, we're going to be continuing our Lubitsch series with The Smiling Lieutenant, which is from 1931.
It's one of his musicals. We wanted to get a musical on there.
Exactly. So it looks like this one's also on they got these available, this one available online as well, but it's also in the Criterion channel. Or the Criterion collection, excuse me. So
there's a box set of all of his musicals, I believe.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Love Parade. Anyway, that'll wrap up this episode. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Sweet.